Good evening and welcome to Grandiflora here in Potts Point. On 3 Food Memories, I ask guests to share their 3 food memories and a social cause close to their heart, with the promise that they'll reveal far more about themselves than what they've tasted. As with all our live shows, tonight is being recorded for a future episode, and we'll share the memories with you to eat right here at the table. We welcome your noise and gusto. It creates listener FOMO, so please feel free to enjoy yourself. Let's begin the chat. The giving of flowers is a symbol of love and gratitude, which aligns with the ethos of Mother's Day. So when it came to marking Mother's Day this year for TFM, it felt right to celebrate with my guest in her florist atelier around the workbench that has been the hive of local and international activity for decades. The mother of 2 and widely successful, the queen of all things floral, nature and artistry in Australia, it is with pleasure I welcome Grandiflora's Saskia Havekes to her table and our mics. Saskia, hello.
Hello, Savva. Thank you. Thank you for a beautiful introduction. My goodness.
So when I think of Grandiflora, I'm reminded of that late 80s film, Still Magnolias. The themes of resilience, love and friendship in the film connect me with the business of this place. Why did you choose the name Grandiflora?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. Well, the flower, the Magnolia grandiflora, has always been my most favourite flower. It's such an architectural bloom and it has everything going for it. It is a very transient flower, and that I love. I love transient flowers that don't last for very long. Has the most magnificent fragrance, of which we've created 2 perfumes as its muse. It has an amazing centre. A lot of people don't know, but it has this incredible crimson stripe at the base of the stamens, and when it falls apart it really shatters, so it makes a loud noise on the table and it leaves lots of pollen and lots of mess. So it's actually a very dramatic flower, and it mantles the top of really large beautiful trees around this area. So when we managed to secure the shop, I realised that the flowers were flowering all around Potts Point in this area. And I thought, well, I'll take that as my muse and I'll take it as the name. And Grandiflora means large flower. So our look was all about generosity and about big blooms and big ideas.
How would you say the last 30 years have been for you?
Oh, well, swings and roundabouts, but lots of adventures, huge adventures. I've been able to travel. I've never imagined in my wildest dreams, when I put the key into this tiny little shop, that so many opportunities would come my way. I seem to have struck a chord with lots of incredible people that I've worked with over the years, beautiful florists and creative people that aren't florists that have come to work with us and blended into the team and offered so many different skills. So that's really become a huge extension of Grandiflora. I don't think we are just flowers, but we have a little shop now in Singapore, and we've worked a lot in fashion. We've done a lot of beautiful shows in different parts of the world. I think I've also got to know a lot about my clients. I've learnt a lot from my clients. I've learnt about grief, as Julie said. I've learnt about great happiness. I've learnt a lot about myself. Definitely.
What have you learnt about yourself?
I've learnt that I can be quite tough, and I've learnt that I can be very, very sensitive. I've learnt that I have a great connection with people, a natural connection. I just seem to be able to tap in very quickly to what people are feeling, and I really try and translate that with the flowers. So I feel like I'm a medium. I don't see myself as some, glorious, incredible, creative genius or force. I just see myself as a vehicle to really get the message from that person of what they feel and what they want to create and what they want to portray and the message they want to give to people. It could be a tiny bunch of flowers. It doesn't have to be a big event. And just very quickly finding that little tick, that little moment of real potent, like a beautiful emotion, a drop of perfume that is just exquisite, that I can package up and send to somebody else And that really ignites something in that other person.
And
And it's in the message too, the message of the flowers chosen, but also the physical message written on the card and how that's written in our beautiful calligraphy.
And that changes from person to person, from bunch to bunch, doesn't it?
Every day, all day. So nothing is repeated. So every single bunch is unique, and it's got to be connected to what I know about that order, where it's going, which suburb, maybe a religious quality, it might be the message on the card, it could be where it's, you know, the time of day, why is it being delivered to a hospital, what's happened at the hospital. So it's never just, this is an order, make the flowers, send the flowers out. I'm very intrigued psychologically to what is the connection, how can I make that flower really bring that message to that person.
30 years ago, Julie mentioned you put the key in the door, and what happened?
When I put the key in the door...
Walk us through it. So there's the door there. Key. Ding, ding, ding.
Well, it is a tiny, honest little shop. It used to be in Lawrence Dry Cleaner, so we spent a lot of time renovating it ourselves on our hands and knees, and in a very intense, tiny little team. And when we finally put the key in the door, I was feeling a bit unwell. I've been working at the flower markets very early on the flower stands as well. And I thought, gosh, this is really hard. Like normally I'm a florist and I go to the markets and I feel fine and I can do the long hours, but at the moment the renovation and working at the markets really, and I was going to TAFE as well, doing horticulture, but I thought, I feel a little bit more tired than I normally would. And I did a pregnancy test and I found out that I was pregnant literally on the first day that I put the key in the door of the shop. And I had a partner, a business partner, another woman, who was a dear friend and a florist, a German woman, Eva Seltner, who fortunately I'm still friends with, said, well, I'm sorry, I cannot congratulate you on that. But we got through it and we worked very hard, and I promised her that I wouldn't fail her.
So the very beginnings of motherhood happened at that moment.
They did, and it was unexpected.
What did it feel like?
I was very excited.
Overwhelmed?
I was very overwhelmed, but I was very excited about the prospect of being able to be pregnant. I didn't think I could be pregnant. I just thought, I'm going to make this work. Somehow I'm going to make it work. A lot like you, Savva.
How do we ever make anything work? Saskia, your very essence is intention and purpose. How do you adapt to working with the transient nature of the flower?
Well, that is stressful, very, very stressful. So I could maybe equate it to working in a kitchen, working with food, because we are working with perishable ingredients. We don't have a refrigerator. We try and turn all of our stock over within 2 days. So it's careful buying. It's also getting to know your blooms. So they are like people. I mean, I see them as a personality. And
do you talk to them?
I feel like they talk to me more than I talk. I do talk to them in my head. Not out aloud yet, but a lot of people have asked me that question lately. So I think maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm looking like a crazy flower lady at this age.
They're communicating with you. They've got stuff to say.
Definitely. So their shape, their colour, who's growing them, how they're going to perform, whether they're going to need more care to get them sort of into the right position with the other flowers. So navigating that is really a skill. So it takes a long time. I know it sounds very simple, but to find out how to do that and to do it really beautifully takes really a year. If you came and started working with me tomorrow, Savva, I would know it would take a year for you to click into that, to find the shape of the flowers and the beauty of the flowers.
So you're almost the caretakers.
Yeah, I feel like we're here, our position is to navigate that for the blooms and for the client. So it's our responsibility. I feel like it's a very responsible role to purchase for other people. So I'm spending a lot of money. Flowers are very expensive, and I'm a personal shopper. So I do go to the markets myself still 3 times a week, get up at 4. And I love that. Like, to be given that opportunity is very, very great honour. And for people to have that trust in me, and for them to say, I think you know what you're doing, and, you know, go for it. So, navigating each bloom into its best performance is how I would probably describe my daily job.
Mother's Day. Let's talk about Mother's Day for a second before we hop into your memories. It can be a little bit pricky. It can be a little bit prickly for some. You know, it's not all chrysanthemums and carnations for a lot of people.
That's true.
So what does Mother's Day mean for you?
Well, I have to say Mother's Day, for me personally, I feel a bit deprived, if I was really honest, because I have deprived my children really of Mother's Day because I'm always working, and I work, you know, they're very long hours at that time, and it's an extended period. So we do work really from the beginning of that week leading into Mother's Day all the way until the end of the Sunday. We are doing, you know, prepping and buying and taking orders and making sure everything's put out on time. So I don't have the energy for my own children at that time. So that I do have guilt around that, and you know, it's hard to dissolve that guilt, which comes with motherhood and being a working mother. But I do feel great passion for it, and I think it's such a beautiful thing to be able to give so many women, you know, gorgeous bunches of flowers, and they're very lenient. Usually the mothers, Valentine's Day, people are more prickly on Valentine's Day because it has to be there at a certain time and everyone gets nervous, and whereas Mother's Day, it's, well, you know, if they're running a bit late or it comes a day early or a day late, they're very relaxed and easygoing and very gracious and appreciative and lenient, I feel, yeah. It's a beautiful experience to gift, you know, from children to their parents and to their mothers. And we get orders from everywhere, from all over the world. So having the opportunity to bring that message to mothers from their children is a great honour.
Your first food memory. Your first food memory is black bread and smoked mussels. So to get started, everybody, you have a tin. It's not mussels, it's oysters, smoked mussels. So if you want to get started on each of your tins, one between two, and pass the bread around, and there's some lovely salted butter there to get started. So pop open the tin, your fork and your knife, and we'll hear Saskia speak about the smoked oysters with black bread.
Yes, so this is a food memory, an early memory from my my father. So my father was Dutch and he loved black bread. We didn't have any other type of bread in our house. He was very particular about his food tastes, and black bread was definitely a staple in our household. We did have a lot of people visiting us, so we always had people entertain, you know, we were always entertaining guests. We lived outside of Sydney, quite a long way out of the city. So people would come to our house on the weekend and we would have what my father called open house. And there were a lot of other children that would come and they'd be from the city and we'd give them a kind of a country experience. And my dad always had a fire. We always had, you know, often big barbecues. Sometimes we had musicians, we had Spanish dancers that would come and perform for us all. It was really quite idealistic. And we had a valley with a creek at the bottom of the valley that a lot of children would like to come, like your children would have loved to have come there, and we'd take them down to the creek and we'd maybe swim in the water and look for tadpoles and boil the billy.
Boil the billy.
I did boil the billy and I'd make damper. I did that after school. I used to had a little pony I'd take down there sometimes too. But this was a sort of a staple with my family. So to welcome everyone in and to start the kind of you know, hosting of the occasion, we would start with this as a kind of welcome.
And why smoked mussels? Did you get them from a tin like we're doing right now?
Yeah, definitely. He loved anything smoked, actually. I mean, the Dutch do smoke a lot of things. They love to smoke herring, they smoke eel. So he loved that smoky flavour, and we always had a fireplace with a lot of smoke because he did make a pretty grand fire, but the chimneys were a little bit haphazard. Our house was a very creative household, so the house would get a bit smoked out. So smoking we used to be able to smell smoke on our clothes a lot, and that kind of reminds me of that as well, because I'm very into fragrance. But he would also smoke a pipe. So he was a proper big Dutchman that looked like Santa Claus. So he had a pipe that he would stack, and I would sometimes help him stack his pipe, and he would puff his pipe and the smoke would all come out, and that was my father, Gerard. So he was an artist and a very flamboyant man, and a very strict father, actually.
What made him? What are some of the strict moments that you remember?
Well, he was very definite about our manners, and he used to like to give us a lecture. so we were 3 daughters and I was the youngest, and we'd all have to sit at the table, and we were not allowed to leave the table until he had finished. And often it would go for a good hour and we didn't get a say. He would just speak and we would listen, and we would do it. We never flinched. We just were obedient, and we listened and we learnt. And we had our opinions behind the scenes, but we would always sit for the lecture. And it could be anything.
Did you have a favourite lecture?
Um,
Were they on rotation?
No, they were always something new.
Wow.
It was about us usually, and my parents were separated, so a lot of the time as well it was navigating that, and just his views on the world. You know, he was a very creative person, so he would teach us as well during that time. But yeah, mostly it was to do with our education, or the separation, or the arts, or his philosophy, or we went to a Steiner school as well, so he was into the Steiner philosophy.
So has your father's work ethic and experience and look on the world influenced the way you florist?
Oh, 100%.
Give me some moments.
Well, he was an incredibly visual man, so our house was amazing. Like, we grew up the house was cantilevered over a valley, and so the house would change constantly. He was always moving all the furniture. He bought beautiful pieces through the antiques. He was always at auctions. He painted. We had a pottery, so we basically lived in his pottery in his studio. So it was a long rambling house that basically had no doors. So people would come there and they saw it as something that was incredibly unusual for its time. It was not an average home. So I learnt a lot. He was always teaching me about the visual world. And we had a beautiful bushland. We had incredible garden. My mother taught me a lot about plants. We didn't really have flowers in the house, but we had beautiful plants around the house that we knew a lot about. We weren't sort of avid gardeners, but we understood nature. And my father was just constantly teaching me about looking for things, so looking for beauty in the world. Could be in anything, could even be in ugly things actually. And he was a great observer of people, so I do think that I learnt a lot about people through my father.
When you look back on Dad in your earlier years, is there anything that stands out separate to the lectures?
Well, I think he had a very rough time actually. He was an immigrant. He came in the 50s, and he was quite, misplaced when he arrived, but he took that on and he made good friends, and he developed his own community around him. They were all very multicultural, and he really supported the multicultural world here, which at that time was a struggle, especially with food, in fact. Like, this was very unusual for its day to serve this sort of, entree, if you want to call it that, starter. But he was going at it with great gusto. He was not shy about any of it. He wanted to educate people, he wanted people to feel it, he wanted them to be involved, and he enjoyed that. So that's how I feel in the shop. I really want people to come in and take something away with them.
So this is something that he would serve as a welcome. Would he serve with the mussels and some bread? Would he serve a drink? Is there a drink that he would have had with it?
Oh yes, always red wine.
Red wine.
Yes, always red wine.
Did he ever make his
He
own?
liked a bit of the glue wine.
Right.
Yeah, I used to do the cloves in the oranges during winter. Yeah. So he'd get a big vat of that going. I mean, he did everything with gusto. Like, there'd be the paellas, there'd be huge barbecues. So, like, we would sometimes have 100 people, I'm not kidding, with a concert. Like, he really went for it big time.
So how did he fund all this? I'm just thinking
that was usually ticketed,
right.
That sort of event.
Really?
Yeah.
So these are performances that he's putting on.
Yeah. But we did have a lot of people who were friends that would come over the weekend, and often they'd be clients. So he did have a lot of architects who were clients, and just, people who knew his work that would buy for their homes, and they all became part of our lives. We would, meet them, and we'd go to their houses, and they'd come to our house, and we'd know their children, and we still know those children, and some of them are still coming here, and clients. I've kept my surname, so people know me, hunt me down from the Havekes history. And they remember going to our house. They come in and they say, we went to your house in Kenthurst, and we still remember it, and you'll probably remember our children. And that generation's going now, but the children are still connected. And yeah, it's very special that a home can give you that, can give you that for your future. And we all speak about, housing and how you look after people. and how you give them a beautiful home.
So your floristry, there's a beautiful synergy where your work and literature and any form of communication, any platform comes together. When you're working with these beautiful flowers, is there a thread, like a vine, that takes you to food and food memories and food experiences when you've got your hands in the flowers?
Definitely I do. I think if you asked anyone that's worked here for the last, through the period of 30 years, and there's been people that have worked here for really long periods of time, short periods of time, whatever. But I think they'll say that there is a food culture in here. So I really like people to have, we definitely don't really get much of a chance to stop, but we always have lunch, and, sometimes it's very average, sometimes it's amazing. But I think we do a lot of work with restaurants as well. So there is food that in the early days, people like Kylie Fong used to, cook for us. On Valentine's Day, she'd bring incredible meals down. Yes, yeah. She'd bring all the dumplings and the chili sauce. And I mean, that would just give us all such a lift. We've been literally working back to back for, 48 hours or whatever. And she'd turn up with these big platters of the most incredible, like world-class food that we could all share and stop. And I mean, that to me is such a beautiful gift.
This table is far more than a workbench. It's seen a lot, as Julie described before.
It definitely has seen a lot.
What are some of the staff meals that you've had on this table? Or in fact, when the door closes and you invite your friends over?
Well, we are great fans of Fage, I have to say that much. So if we're working late, that's a lovely thing for us to look forward to. So we might come back from bumping out a job, or we might be putting flowers together to send off to Wajek or Too Good. Yeah. And we will have Wajek because it's just such a beautiful, something that really tops you up, and it's across the road. But we have had many chefs actually cook for us here. We've had Jonathan from Apollo has made us a lot of meals, Pratelli, of course, Julie has brought us copious amounts of the most amazing cakes and biscuits. Actually, people bring us a lot of food. Really? There's a lot of nodding going on at the moment. Really? Yeah, we do. I think they know, to hit the florist's heart, bring them some food.
Do you have time to cook at home?
I
do. And bring in a pot of something?
Oh, no, I don't bring in a pot. I wish I could. I do like to cook. I don't get a lot of time to do it, but I do try to cook every Sunday night. Usually I bring my mother over to have a meal with us, and I really try to get my girls to sit down and have a meal together. So we'll go up and buy beautiful I only cook very simple food. I just love, fish, and I cook chicken, and I just do something that's vegetables and beautiful salads and some rice, and just something that I don't have to stress too much about, but that it's beautifully done. And I think to all sit down around the table at the end of the week is a good way to start the next week and just regroup. And we do have meals throughout the week, but we're very touch and go. We're all on different schedules, and it's things that are left on the table, and someone takes a bit of a snack, or it's not formalised so much during the week.
What do you like to eat the most? What would you keep in your back pocket?
Oh, in my back pocket? Sarah. I love zucchinis. I've got a real thing for the zucchinis at the moment. I don't know, I just find them very, very nurturing, actually. And I get them from the market. So I've got a little guy at the market who, he's not kind of really allowed to be there, but he does sell things on the side of the flower market.
I bet there's a lot of that happening in the market.
Yes, and he makes me up a box, and he texts me every Thursday night. So I just give him my list, and he'll make me up a box, and that's a saviour for me. So, and it's very fresh. It's the best of, because the flower markets and the fruit and vegetable markets are cheap to jowl. So you can get anything you like from the vegetable market. Fruit and vegetable market's right next door. So yeah, the best produce.
Let's talk about these market holders. There's a very special relationship that they seem to be some sort of conduit, aren't they, between the grower and you being the end user. What is it about these guys? I would imagine there's mostly men, European men, aren't there?
There are, yeah. So the markets have changed so much in my time with flowers, and it's still changing a lot at the minute. But in my early days, flowers were very conservative, very, very conservative, and actually it was quite ordinary.
Have you influenced any changes in what people grow?
I definitely feel I have influenced, for sure, but there have been other people that have influenced, of course, but it has, so for example, one of my growers is in Dural, right near where I grew up, and we're the same age, so we always say we're from the same soil, and there are a lot of growers in that area, and I used to see them while I did have a little pony, so while I was riding around that area, I would see all the market gardens, and you know, mostly Italians and Greeks, and they'd always have what we would call the carnation mansion. So we'd see that go from sort of a shed to a carnation mansion, and then we knew they'd made it. But a lot of those growers now grow beautiful roses, or they've diversified through their children. So they're my age, the children are more my age. And I'm very connected with them. So one family in particular, when I first started in flowers, I asked them to put magnolias in because I could see there was a huge market for magnolia foliage in particular. Nobody was using that. And the flowers, which nobody really wanted to use those because they're so transient. But I put my hand up and said, I will do a massive wedding with only magnolia flowers. And sweated all the bullets because of it. But they have grown, you know, probably up to 40 massive magnolia trees on my say-so, and now they've reaped the benefits, and I've been able to also, and I'm able to go and pick there whenever I like, pick what shapes and how many stems. And
so much like a restaurateur influences a fruit and veg, like a farmer.
Yes.
Really?
Yes. But there are a lot of agents out there now too. So we now have imported flowers, and that's relatively recent. So really only over the last 10-ish years.
Does that give you more of a range of
yes,
product to work with?
Of course. So for example, you know, Phalaenopsis orchids, I would have had to have ordered 5 stems, you know, a month in advance when I was doing one bouquet for a wedding. But now, you know, they're a lot, and we just buy boxes, and it's very convenient, which is, you know, it's lovely, but I do miss the connection with those smaller growers and those times. I mean, a lot of us miss those times, I think. But it's also very luxurious to be able to have, you know, what you want, less stressful. But I do worry about the environment, because at the moment we're in the program of recycling, which is going to be compulsory next year. So I'm trying to be ahead of the game, and I'm trying to influence other florists to become...
Explain...
involved in it.
Yeah, what's that involved?
So separating all of our materials, and I actually thought that I'd have the majority would be green waste. I thought I had these visions of huge skip bins full of just green, because we're cutting onto the floor all day, and there's a lot of beautiful produce that comes off all these incredible flowers, and I thought this should all be going back into why are we putting it in plastic bags? It should, you know, landfill. It should just be going as, you know, back to compost. But actually, the majority of our waste is filler, cardboard, vials. It's all, you know, things that you can't put back into the soil, and I'm finding that very hard to deal with at the moment. It's very labour intensive. It's very much worth it, but it's educational too, to see what really in the past we would just shove into bins without any consideration has now become a huge concern.
Your second food memory we're going to move on to is poached chicken and sliced cucumber ginger shallots. Now, this is something that Mum made. Let's talk about this dish that's coming around, everybody.
Oh, lovely. How beautiful. So this is a dish that my mum would make, really like our comfort food, I guess. So a simple dish. My mum used to cook food that was not very expensive, because she was a single mother, and there were 3 of us, and we were all the women in the house, and sometimes some boyfriends or whatnot. But she used to cook a lot of, you know, offal and things like that. So we would eat kidneys and liver, and she wanted to make sure we had plenty of protein, and she would cook this dish as a sort of a treat in a way, because it was very light and just a nice meal for us to all share together as a family, something that we all loved. And I enjoyed it because it had kind of an Asian influence, so not so European, which was very much my dad's bend. He was always on to the, you know, European food, and we couldn't really break out of too much of that. So it was like a little bit of a rebellious dish in a way when we were with Mum. Yeah.
So where did she get the Asian flavours from?
Well, my father would always take us to Paddy's markets every Saturday when we were children, right from, I can remember, tiny, but that was when it was in Chinatown, and that's where my love for the markets really hatched. And we would go rain, hail or shine, in his open Land Rover. Occasionally, if it was really torrential or really windy or very, very hot, he would put a canopy over.
The one
and that was
made.
it. It was canvas, like an army canopy. The sides were open and it was just a metal bench that we'd sit on. There was no luxuries with my father, ever. So if you were cold, you put on a jumper. And that was an adventure and I loved it. I loved going into the city because we were living quite a long way out of town. I mean, it was pretty much dirt roads. And we would go to the Malaya, actually, the restaurant, for a little lunch, which was a big treat to come and do that. But we had our favourite people at the market and he had these huge, big canvas army sacks that we all had to carry one and drag because they were all full of vegetables and fish and things that we would bring back and eat. And he went to Scala Brothers, which was a beautiful delicatessen on the corner. And it was really one of the only places in Sydney in those days that did produce beautiful, like a huge cheese room. It had salamis and prosciutto and beautiful coffee that you could buy in huge, sacks, really. Like it was all very, very rustic and basic. But Scala Brothers was where all of my father's friends would meet on a Saturday morning. So we had to sit in another spot and we were allowed to have a little soft drink, definitely not Coca-Cola, but that was also a treat. And we would mix again with the children that were from the city there. And then we'd all get back into the Land Rover and drive home, and that food was what we had for the week.
So would you say a stark difference between Dad living and Mum living? So it seems like Dad had big parties and celebrations where Mum really had, like, you speak of 3 jobs that she had to get food on the table.
Yeah.
So it was...
It was
different.
a big contrast.
Yeah.
But they were together until I was 7, so they still lived that life. Like I remember the big parties when they were together. But my mother was actually very shy, and she was with the children and in the background and cooking and not part of the big front part of the party. That was very much my dad's. So when they separated, yes, my mother had a quieter life and she did work incredibly hard.
Did she like to work?
I think she liked to, I think she wanted to do the best for her children. I don't think she was crazy about working, but I think she really felt the pressure and she wanted to do the best for her children. She did get involved with somebody quite quickly, actually during the time of the end of my father and her relationship, and that was tricky. But they stayed together and he lived in the city. So we used to go into the city quite a lot to visit him. But my mother had, the idea that eventually they would move in together, which they did. And we lived separately from him for a long time though. So it took a while. So she had to work to put food on the table. It was a necessity.
What are some of your early memories of Mum?
Well, I remember her having beautiful long hair. So really gorgeous. She was very, very beautiful in her day, and she was very considerate. She was very focused on people and their care, and she's somebody that you could always rely on. Somebody that you could ask. You could ring in the middle of the night for anybody that was her friend, and she would, without a doubt, be there.
So that lives on in a Grandiflora bouquet, doesn't it?
I think so. Yeah, I do think so. I think she really instilled that in all of us, actually. Yeah.
She was very much part of your life through your own motherhood when as you were going through mothers and bringing up the 2 girls, much like mine is. I don't know parenting without my own mother.
Yeah.
But in recent years, the roles have changed. What's happened to Mum?
Oh, well, my mother was incredibly essential when I obviously opened the shop, and I convinced her to leave the job that she had. She worked in aged care, and I matched her pay, and I said, can you leave there and become basically my nanny, actually, which she's always been a huge lover of children, fanatic about babies in particular. So that was a no-brainer for her. It was a definite yes. But we worked together, I can say that, because it really was like a working partnership until the girls were out of school, so for a very long time. And she has now got dementia, and so I have become very close to her in a very different way, because my other two sisters don't live in Sydney. One lives in Hobart and the other one lives most of the time in Las Vegas. And sometimes here too in Bowral, but she's not available to do the day-to-day things that need to be done with my mum. So it's become, the roles have really changed, and much, very rapidly now. It becomes very evident that she needs my anchoring constantly. So there's a lot of texting that goes on all day, and I do have her. I bring her to my house to have a meal on Sundays, she really loves that. But it is a very big transition to understand how to manage that, because there's times where she's very distant and not somebody that I really know, and then there are times where I do feel very connected to her.
What is it like being the daughter of someone who has dementia?
I think you have to really learn patience. So being kind is really important. It's very easy to be frustrated and very easy to lose your temper, but to remember the person that you grew up with and what they gave you, especially with my children. I mean, I could never ever have done this business without her, hands down. So yeah, remembering that and bringing that love back to her.
Ginger and Sunday are very involved in their grandmother's life. What's it like to see your babies have their own relationship with your mother, outsider looking in?
Well, again, that's changed too, because now she needs their care, and that is very moving, really, to see them connect with her and to feel her comfort with that. So there are other grandchildren, but these two, my two, because they were really brought up by her, are always respectful to her, always, no matter what. So, and that's sometimes a real surprise to me, because, she presses their buttons, but they will always be kind to her, and that's the thing I'm most proud of with the two girls.
So that's something that's passed down from grandmother to mother to daughter. Is it something that's quite a beautiful thing to look at and celebrate, to see that your little ones?
Yeah, I do sometimes think, how long will this last, or will it be different today when they meet up, but so far, and it's getting quite extreme, they're always very happy to see her, and of course she's thrilled to see them.
Both your daughters have experienced at least two versions of motherhood, both hands-on and industrious. If they choose to be mothers one day, what advice would you give them? What would you give them? What would you say to them, mother to daughter?
Oh, well, that's very, very hard to answer in a small period of time, but I would say to them to take as much time as they can to be a mother, especially when they're little, because it's very, very challenging for little children to not have that kind of parenting. I think that's invaluable if you can give that to your children, to be with them as much as you can, and it's it might only be a small amount, but as much as you can possibly give them in true time and true emotion, give it all when you can.
But I think you've done a really good job as a working mother, because they're here working with you. They were both here today. They are not far from you.
No, that is true, but that absolutely has its challenges too. So there's a lot of great things about it, and it's reassuring to have family. Yeah. But there are times that it's a lot more challenging than even working with a team that you just as your colleagues, your work colleagues, because there's a boundary and a line that gets crossed, and there's conversations and there's words that are used, and there's hurt feelings, and there's things that are agitating that need to be navigated, and that has been super challenging. And it's been a huge thing to learn about, and I hear about it a lot with my growers too, because there's a generational thing there with families who bring their children through the business. So I've tried to learn from them as well and watch them as an example. And you do fall over, and there are things that don't work, and there are times that you think this is crazy. What am I, why am I doing this? Is it worth it?
Is it worth it?
At the moment, certainly with Sunday, yes, but that's, she's only 22, so she's still very young. But it's all to be seen. I mean, I actually don't know. I hope it is worth it. I personally find it very beneficial. I love being around them. I love seeing them learn. I especially like to see them, achieve and become bigger and better and more adventurous. But whether it's real, I don't really know that myself, because there are times where I think I am a certain person. This is what I'm questioning at the moment, and I am a very driven person. And I can't really inflict that on them. I can't expect that they're going to be the same. So either they're going to develop that, or they're going to develop in a different way and do it differently to me, and that's all yet to be seen. Or maybe they decide to go in a completely different direction, which will need to be navigated when it happens. But yeah, for the minute, it's a nice fit.
So let's navigate this. If they both choose to have children, or one of them all, that means that you'll be a grandmother. So will you be a grandmother that cooks or a grandmother that forages?
I think I'll be a forager.
Are you looking forward to grandmotherhood?
I think if they were both sitting here right now, they'd tell you Mum will probably run for the hills. In some ways I am looking forward to it, but I think of Ginger. I think she would be a beautiful mum. It just, the right things have not happened for her. She's had some ups and downs. And I hope for her that she does have that experience, because I really think she would be a beautiful mother. Sunday's a little bit more resistant. She's not a great fan of babies. She's not that enthusiastic about that process, but it may happen, and she'll be maybe completely different when she does become a mother. It's such a thing of the unknown, motherhood. I mean, giving birth is such an individual thing for people. It's, somebody you think could be a natural mother is often not a natural mother, and it doesn't come to them in a beautiful way. It can be actually quite traumatic becoming a mother, and there's a lot of difficulty that comes along with that you need to learn about, and you need to converse with other people and find out, how do I navigate this? I mean, I remember being completely elated when Ginger was born. I think I was having some kind of psychosis, because I was just walking around saying to people, this is a miracle, like, look at this baby. And they were like, yeah, we've just had our 5th child, whatever. But I couldn't stop sniffing her head. I felt very animal, like, really. I felt like the birth process for me was really exciting. But what came after that I found very difficult. To navigate work and being a mother and trying to,
I don't think you can plan. I don't think you can put anything into that. It's just whatever comes.
Yes.
Come what may, isn't
it?
it?
Yeah.
I have this wonderful theory that being a grandparent gives you a second opportunity to be a parent, and to kind of fix what you didn't do. I see it with my own parents. They have the most wonderful relationship with my children, and sometimes I have to put up my hand and say, Rick, I was here first.
Yeah.
Did you
Back
find
off.
that? Yeah. Did you find that with your mum when she was looking after the girls growing up?
I sort of thought that might be the case, but Mum's just such a fanatic about little children and babies, and I mean, it could be anybody's baby actually. She just loves children and loves to be around them and help them and dress them and feed them, and it is. If she didn't have to work, she would have been a full-time mother to however many children and everybody else's children, because there were a lot of children around us when we were growing up. We were the ones always saying, we're actually your children.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'm going to be like that. But who knows? Maybe I will. I just don't know that I'm that kind of person. Yeah.
Your third food memory, another one that we're going to link to Mum, is scones with strawberry and blackberry jam and fresh whipped cream. Let's talk about this one. It's on its way.
I'm excited about this one. Well, Julie will know of my mum's scones, and when she could, which is not that long ago, she would bring scones to the shop in a basket with a tea towel around them to keep them warm, and she would always bring freshly whipped cream and beautiful jams, and it was just...
Did she make the jams?
She used to make a lot of... not recently, but when we were children, she would always be doing all sorts of jam making and pickling, and there was always dyeing. She used to dye clothes. She used to do a lot of spinning. I used to card all her wool. She'd make jumpers for all of my dad's friends. She was always dyeing with natural things like flowers and leaves and boiling them up in big pots. So that was very much my very craft arts-based mother. But the scones were always something really more of her family. So she came from a very, quite a posh traditional English family, or English background, but Australian. And this was very much something that her aunts and her mother would perform, the scone ceremony, but we used to help her make the scones. So it was always about being light with your fingers and making sure that, putting the butter and the flour together very lightly was a thing that we learnt, and we would make scones for our friends when they'd come over as well.
Scones are like a metaphor for life when I think about them. It's all about the proportion of jam to cream. You're getting it right, isn't it? Is there a scone, and again, let's look at life as well as we look at the scone. Is there a ritual? What comes first? In this particular case, we've probably put a little bit of butter underneath too, a bit of salted butter.
Beautiful.
And then we've done the lovely, there's a strawberry jam with vanilla and then a blackberry jam and a little hint of spice in it as well.
Oh my God, my mum would be beside herself to know about all this.
So is there a ritual? Is there an order? Please, everybody start to, as we're talking about it, dig into the scone. Otherwise, it's gonna go.
Oh, beautiful!
It's gonna go rock hard. But is there a ritual? What comes first? Does the jam go on first? Is it the cream?
Oh, the jam.
The jam goes on first.
Yes, jam and then the cream.
What was?
Is this
Well, yeah, I'm just looking at it.
What
What would happen if you would put more jam on than cream? Would you have to go back and fix it all up and then, I just need another scone? Was it just a story that just...
I just think all of it all at once kind of concept. Yeah, that's probably my life too. I just like to take it all on and sort it all out and just keep going.
So whatever was on the plate you would deal with?
I think so, yeah. I just used to think this is fantastic, like get the jam happening, the whipped cream. I'd help with the whipped cream. I was there with the beater myself. I just couldn't get it all happening fast enough. And encourage Mum, come on, we've got some people coming over, can we have some scones? And yeah, it was a lovely way of sitting down and connecting with people. Very different to my father though, but yeah, we did love that with Mum.
The conversations, you said your aunts, what were some of the conversations around the scone eating?
Both my aunts were pretty eccentric. So they were all painters, flower painters. They were, their father was a QC. They were kind of boffins, I suppose. And they all dressed and they had hats and my Aunt Audrey, my great Aunt Audrey was extremely eccentric. So she used to keep a paper bag on her head to keep her thoughts in, and they were all a bit like that. Yeah. So the scones, we were all eating the scones, but there was a lot of other stuff going on.
So how did you navigate all that? You had a dad who was very theatrical, Mum who had these crazy aunts. And then but then there was a Dutch line and there was an English line, and here you were living in just at the back of Sydney somewhere.
Yeah, northwest.
Where did you fit in?
Well, it was a mixing pot, but I had friends, I had school, I had people that I loved my little horse, I loved nature. So really, nature was my anchor, I would say. So being in the bush for me was just the best. So to be able to walk down through the sandstone and underneath the Angophora trees and through the flannel flowers and down to the creek where all the little tadpoles and the moss and the beautiful smell of the water. We had a rope swing that we could go, and I would go down there on my own or with my sisters or friends. And as I said, I did really literally boil the billy and make damper myself in the fire. I'd make a fire. So that was my escape. And I loved my little horse. I used to go off on trail rides for a day, disappear, take my little saddlebag. I was very independent actually at a very early age, and I really felt quite ambitious. I wanted to get into town, I wanted to meet people, I wanted to go to the markets, I wanted to go to Paddington markets. I really wanted to foster new friendships, and discover. Was very, very keen to discover what other people were thinking, what the music was, what fashion was, you know, go to art galleries. So yeah, that was my aim.
So that curiosity keeps you at the coalface in this business, doesn't it?
I think so. Yeah, I think the curiosity, thank God, is still is still very prevalent in all my being.
What was it about the big smoke, the city, that was so attractive to a country, rural or country?
I don't think it was really country. It was more rural in a way. Yeah, but I mean, I had the access to it through my family, definitely. But I just wanted to know more about what was ticking, what was going on. I wanted to get my license straight away and get into the city and find out what everybody was up to.
So the scone, it would seem to me, was a dish that Mum made, or a food item that Mum made to calibrate, to bring you all together. What is it is there something that you cook, or is something that you do to calibrate the people in your life?
I think most people would say it's here at the shop. Like
around
really,
this table?
I think so. And just in general, not necessarily having a meal at this table, but just visiting this shop. Like most people will know that this is where I'm happening. I mean, it is at home too, but realistically, I'm here for the majority of the time. And this is really my shell. Like I feel like this is my snail shell. It's who I am. So the physicality of the shop is all Saskia, yeah, with the flowers.
Family for you extends beyond blood connection. It consists of people who support and love you, who confide in you and trust in you, vice versa. What does family look like for you these days?
Oh, well, family is, there's a little bit of torment there at times because my daughters are quite a handful. I can't say that they're, you know, a walk in the park. Sometimes I am very surprised actually. But I'm learning all the time, every day, every minute I'm learning about them and myself and how it all fits together. And I mean, I didn't expect that. I didn't expect in their 20s that I would be doing that. I thought I'd have a lot more of an understanding and things would be, you know, more settled in a way. But because of the way of the world and the structure of our family, we've got quite a kind of volatile family, I think. There's been a bit of fallout, there's been some joys, there's been some, you know, quite hard times. So family to me is totally complex. Like it's not a relaxed thing. It's something that's forever morphing and forever something that I have to grapple with and try and understand and learn and progress, which I feel like it would be nice to feel more relaxed with it and not as kind of complicated about it.
Do you think there are other families who aren't complicated?
No, I think there are families that are definitely less complicated than mine, but I do think everyone has their complications. It just depends on how you decide to present, really. Like whether you're going to be really honest about it or whether you're going to be disguised. And I see that all the time. I mean, I've done the christenings and the weddings and the funerals, and I've seen so many tapestries through this work of mine. And I have felt really grateful because I've learnt so much. It's made me less probably worried or nervous or confused because I've seen it through other people's lives. So I don't feel like I'm the only one that's kind of odd or weird or, you know, I get it that there's a lot going on for everybody a lot of the time, but people have different problems at different times and everybody has their time. Everybody has their time. So even if it's rosy, I mean, a lot of my friends have got amazing situations and it truly is rosy, but I do know within time things can fall apart, and that's nature and it's the world, and it is only natural actually, and it's how you deal with that. It's how you process it and how you stare it in the face.
So when you're part of, much like me with catering, when you're part of people's private experiences and events, you are not only the conductor, but you're kind of front row audience to see what is going on for them. Sometimes do you just stop and just really look into that and go, wow, that's a story there. You must have I do. You must have like stories that go to Africa.
Well, we've all got different time frames with our process, don't we? So, I mean, I think of hairdressers or hair and makeup people on a wedding day. I think, well, that's on their face or on their head, whereas we do our flowers and we leave and come back later and we see everyone very drunk and kind of out of control. But yeah, I feel like with ours, we've got a big build up. So we really see, you know, the joys and the aggravation and the, you know, the confusion and the arguments, but then people that are very resolved and, you know, people do it in very different ways. So being respectful to that is really important, and giving people their time and really trying to help people, because I feel like, especially with funerals, I can make a big difference. I can really get people to feel that they are cared for. And I get great joy out of that. Like a small touch can really make such a difference at that time, at those times when people are really in need and really suffering and really sad. Especially to come into this space, I can honestly say that it's so therapeutic for people to sit at this table. To sit at this table and have a meal, yes, amazing. But to sit at this table with people that are in deep grief gives me a great sense of true satisfaction, to quietly sit with them and let them just be in a beautiful environment where they can choose something gorgeous for their person, their loved person, and walk away from here feeling some resolve, like they've been able to feel good for a little while. Yeah.
Do you find that in those moments you just have to suck it up and be this really strong scaffolding?
No, I don't
at
all.
You're vulnerable
In fact,
with them?
Sometimes I don't think they want a scaffolding. They just want to sit and be normal. They just want to see people walking around, answering the phones, wrapping bunches, watching people make flowers is so therapeutic. And just looking around, like look at all the beauty. Even me today, after 30 years, I never tire of looking at all this beauty. And just to have that moment, I don't think that I need to be anyone. I just think I need to offer that. That's all I need to offer. And then I just need to do the process, find out what do you need? Like, this is what we can offer. We can offer large arrangements at the church, or we can on-gift them to a charity afterwards. We can have candles, but I don't want to overwhelm them either, but I just want to give them what they need. But I don't feel like I need to be strong for them. And I've been through some really severe situations with people, but I don't feel I need to be strong for them. I just feel like I need to give them a place.
Is that something you've learned over the 30 years, or that's how you were in the very beginning?
No, I've learned it, definitely. I've never rushed in. It's not my nature in that situation, but I do feel like I can offer a platform. So that's how I see it. I just want to make a beautiful space for them so everyone in here knows. It's not like everything shuts down and we all be quiet, but we do tone it down. So we might change the music, we might make them a beautiful area and offer them some water and just let them sit for a while, and then, you know, find out what they need.
Let's talk about your social causes. You've chosen 2 social causes this evening. One of them is Too Good Co, and the other one is Women and Girls Emergency Centre. Let's start with Too Good.
Okay.
Tell us about Too Good.
So Too Good, very fortunately, we have some representatives here in the audience, which is lovely that they could come and be here. Too Good I know about through their founder, through Rob Kaslik, who I knew previously, actually, before he started Too Good. And then he started down at St Canis's making meals in glass jars with famous chefs. And I just thought, this is fantastic. Like, wow, we're going to get some of those. And we did. We used to have them. We used to order them, and we started just getting to know what was going on, and bit by bit watch that, charity grow. And we have an on-gifting with flowers. So it's an initiative I started with Grandiflora called Reflora. And I spoke to Rob and we discussed trying to on-gift flowers after events. So as a lot of people know, there's a lot of waste with flowers in the industry in general, all over the world. And people do throw out incredible flowers at the end of events. So why not repackage them, charge the client a minimal fee, and have them on gifted to people who will really appreciate them. So I initiated that discussion, and then in that time I found out, actually through Kylie Kwong, through an event, I met the CEO of WAGEC, Women and Girls Emergency Centre, and we just connected immediately. I just thought this woman was fantastic, and I offered her the process with Grandiflora, and we had just had the most amazing response. We have on gifted flowers before that to hospitals and to schools and to charities, but just in particular, we've really found our response with those two charities have been incredibly successful.
What does Too Good look like these days?
Well, Too Good, in fact, I was speaking to the team earlier on, has grown really so quickly. And to me, well, the best way I could describe it is it's an incredibly well-oiled machine. I think that they are doing such an incredible process and job. They've got everything running so smoothly, and it's apparently Rob's now looking into housing, so trying to work out ways that women can, start purchasing their own houses.
Wow.
So he has an incredible facility of merchandising, so that self-funding. He's trying to develop self-funding for the organisation. But the modern approach that he has is really to be commended. So he's very at the forefront of making that continuously successful.
So he's empowering women to take control of their lives.
Yes.
And give them the confidence to get back into the workforce and pick it up and keep going.
As chefs.
As chefs?
As chefs. So they come on board,
yeah,
and they have a training process,
yeah,
for a period of time, and then they graduate and they get into the workforce with a lot more confidence, and they're helped the whole way through. But I did go and have lunch with Rob recently to talk about another project, more to do with his merchandising. And we had this incredible lunch, which they have every day. They have a huge table, which I think seats about 40 people. And the women, usually it's one particular woman, puts forward one of her recipes, and they cook it on the day, and everybody from the team eats at the long table. And you can be invited as a guest to come and meet there and sit at the table with everybody. And I found that really moving. I felt really comfortable, which is a lovely thing, isn't it? Like, I was looking at something about manners the other day, which I forwarded on to my daughters, and one of the things that it said.
It's a dad lecture.
Well, it's a good way of doing it nowadays. You just flick them something from Instagram. It's terrible, really. But they said that really one of the main things about manners is to make people feel comfortable. So it's not always about having perfect manners, but making people feel welcome and comfortable at a table is really a key.
Let's talk about Women and Girls Emergency Centre. What do they do? What is the core of
Women
that?
and Girls Emergency Centre house safe houses. So they take women from domestic violence and their families, and they put them into safe houses. So they have quite a few offices around Sydney, which is who we work with. So we will repurpose the flowers to those offices, and then they'll in turn send them out to the safe houses, because of course it's confidential, because these women have come from very brutal situations. So they're doing a big walk actually at the beginning of May. So just before Mother's Day.
This is how we can get involved.
And they're connected with Too Good also, who'll have food there. And it's at Centennial Park. So I think it's on the 4th of May. So
what is
please.
the reference? Is there a website we can send people to?
Yeah, it's walkforwajec.org.au.
Walkforwajec.org.au. We'll put that in our show notes, and we'll send all our listeners that way.
And Too Good catering.
And Too Good catering.
Coffee
as well.
and... What else is on the menu? Other things?
So you have it at Too Good. You have a guest chef every month, don't you? So who's the guest chef this month?
We have Paul Farage.
Paul Farage.
Amalia.
Yeah, and
this month it is Corey Costello.
And what is Paul cooking this month?
Fatouche salad.
Fatouche salad.
Fatouche salad. You've caught me on. There's a
And then there's
toasty.
A sandwich.
A toasty at our cafe in Darlinghurst, and then we have a tahini Anzac cookie.
Oh, beautiful. And this is something that the women make in the kitchens. So they're trained by these guest chefs.
The chefs will share from time to time. They'll come in and do master classes and spend time with the women, but our chefs will be handed over the recipes, they develop them, and then the women cook it in the kitchen.
And what does this give the women? What do they take from these experiences?
I think what we always look for these women is for them to regain their self-worth and their confidence. So when really famous international chefs, Australian chefs are sharing recipes, that's another symbol of them saying you're worthy, we want to give our time, our attention to these women. When you work hard in a kitchen, there's a sense of teamwork, achievement from when you start in the morning to when you finish at night. And so I think these are all the steps that help these women regain their self-worth and confidence.
So the website for Too Good is?
toogood.com.au.
toogood.com.au.
But
TWO. Thank you. And let's move on to the next part of our talk. We have an MFK Fisher Serve It Forth tradition where our previous guest presents you with a dish. Now you're going to love, our previous guest was Maggie Beer.
Oh.
So I didn't tell Maggie that you're going to be
Aww.
the recipient of this. So she gave this
Dear
extraordinary dish. And then when she found out it was you who was going to eat her food, which I'll tell you about in a minute, she stamped her little feet. She was doing a dance in the seat and she was so excited. And she said, Saskia just loves food. She loves coming here because we were in the Barossa.
That's true.
So she serves you squid, followed by lamb, and then quinces from her tree.
Oh my goodness.
And she said, she'll eat all of it.
Yeah,
She'll be really
absolutely.
happy.
I'm not a fussy eater. I'm very grateful for anything that's cooked for me anytime.
Now, what would you like to serve our next guest?
Oh, maybe a big paella.
Paella.
Yeah, I think that's a really lovely dish to warm up with, isn't it? Like during the colder months. And also it's a great dish to stand around and watch be cooked. And it's part of I grew up with a lot of artists, one in particular, John Olsen, and he's used to cook a lot of paellas with my dad at my dad's place.
It's kind of like men barbecuing, isn't it? Around the coals.
Yeah,
isn't it drinking? What were they drinking?
Oh, they would always be drinking the red wine. Red wine, sangria, getting into it.
Well, our next guest, I will tell you, is British-Italian, very handsome folk singer Jack Severetti, who we don't really hear much about in this country, but he lives in the country and he's going to love this.
Fantastic.
So he's all about the rice.
Picked a good dish. Wonderful.
Now, this is your opportunity. You're off the hook now. This is your opportunity to ask me a question.
Oh, well, because it's a Mother's Day kind of theme, of course, I wanted to ask you about your mother, and I know that you have your two beautiful boys who we met earlier on, and I know you're a single parent. So, first of all, I wanted to just say that I really admire you. I think you're amazing. I know your story because I've known you for a long time, actually, and I remember them arriving, and I remember what happened, which was, a huge transition for you
You have to read the book, everybody, to find out exactly.
Absolutely. But your mother being involved, similar to my mum, but what are you going to say to her on Mother's Day?
What am I going to say to her on Mother's Day? She's going to hear this. And I'm telling the whole wide world. I will say to my mother something that makes her feel comfortable and appreciated. My mum's at a certain place, an age in her life where there's lots of stuff going on, and I see it, and I would want to make sure she knew that we appreciated her, but we saw her for where she's at. My mother has a very big story, massive story. She had to leave her place of birth and her own mother when she was 18 to come to Australia to marry. At the age of 19, she got married. 20, I was born, and so she did all that on her own. She used to do this thing with us, and I thought about it a couple of years ago. She used to put us in the car. We lived not far from the airport, and she'd put us in the car with her sister, it would be myself, my brother, and so my brother's 2 years younger than me, and then my sister would have been probably 6, 9 months. You know what? She had her ears pierced, and my sister got her ears pierced when she was 9 months. And so it would have my sister would have been about 1. And I remember she'd take us to Sydney Kingsford Smith Airport. She'd park the car and we'd walk up, and she'd just watch the planes fly off. And I never knew, and it was just only recently that I kind of clicked. Like we did it a couple of times, and she would be very silent, and my mum's not a silent woman. Like, she's got a lot to say about a lot of things, and she's very busy. But watching the planes and negotiating 3 young children, she was probably thinking about
taking
home.
off.
Yeah.
Where would that be? Where would home be?
I don't know.
No?
I don't. Probably.
But where did she come from?
She came from Cyprus. So I don't know. I mean, it's not something, but I do remember that memory of hers.
You'll have to ask her on Mother's Day.
I think she's probably forgotten about it. I feel like it was just she would do it in overdrive. We'd all hop into the Datsun, little red Datsun 180B, and we didn't live far from the airport. In fact, our living room, big window, we could see the runway from the top of the hill. But yeah, we did it a couple of times, and I do remember.
You could feel it was something.
It was
feel
something.
that it was something in her that.
Yeah. So on Mother's Day, I would say something to Mum that. Actually, you know what? I'm going to make a point of it. That makes her aware that I see her for where she is. And that's probably what she needs to get through the next year of looking after those 2 noisy bastards upstairs.
Because she's an egg person, isn't she?
They have
organic eggs.
She is very much into her organic farming and eating really well. Mm-hmm. She comes and visits us. I mean, I've posted a photo once of what my fridge looks like. You know, normal people have, the dinner ladies come in with lovely little boxes. Mine comes in with foam boxes of food.
Fantastic.
And just crams my fridge. Everything. You've got to literally lean up.
Wow.
To ensure that we have the best of everything. In fact, Mum is not a good cook. I take that back.
Be careful.
Mum is a good cook. Her food is beautiful. She's not a great cook. What she's fantastic at is marketing. And my grandmother was much like that. She could find the best chook, the best this. She just knew where to get everything from. Yeah. And there's a skill, as you know, in that.
Yes.
And she has a great negotiation with other farmers and bartering. It's very much part of Mum's process.
Yeah. Connection. Yeah.
Now, to finish,
yes,
I want to ruffle up an old mate, Hippocrates. I want you to finish this sentence for us. Let food be thy medicine and flowers be thy...
Flowers be thy... Tonic.
Saskia, thank you for welcoming us into Grandiflora to literally take time to smell the roses. Happy Mother's Day.
Oh, thank you for having
me. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. That's it for this episode of 3 Food Memories.